Today we're going to be looking at the McFarlane Toys Borderlands. This is Claptrap. Without further ado, let's take the tape measure, my trusty tape measure, and figure out how tall Claptrap stands. We're going to do actually two measurements, because theoretically the Claptrap doesn't really stand on his own without the base. We're going to count the base first. With the base included, and I suppose counting his antenna, he's just a little over 6 inches in height. If you count him just on his own, he's roughly about 5 inches, about 5 inches in height, and about 5.5 inches if you count that antenna again. Gets a ton of accessories, but first things first, we'll take him off the base here. Just put that to the side. I want to show you the base. The base is very similar to the other color top pieces that we've gotten from McFarlane Toys. Actually, the same similar surface on the top there. Kind of looks like a gravel or like a dirt, very coarse sort of dirt terrain. And you've got the Borderland on the front placard. This actually connects into place just to attach to the back of Claptrap, and just plugs into place like this, and then actually has a ratchet joint here. The ratchet is extremely stiff, which I guess works in the favor of holding it in place. If it was loose, I mean, I guess to be fair, if it's staying in place like that, even if this was loose, it wouldn't really necessarily be flopping around and it would knock him off. But it is a really stiff ratcheted joint. Plugs into the back, just like so, and it keeps Claptrap from falling over, which is obviously the one thing you wouldn't want it to be doing, is falling over. So luckily it does stay very well in place. We'll go ahead and take it off the base there, and I know we're going to look at the accessories, but we have to look at this first, because Claptrap is a glorious representation here from the folks over at McFarlane Toys. One of my favorite pieces in recent memory that they've done. He's not a relatively old toy, an old collectible. This figure, if you will, came out last month, I believe, at my local comic book store. Just now picking this guy up. And I really am very impressed with how he turned out. The paint on him is exquisite. And it's neat, as it's a departure from some other figure characters that we get from McFarlane Toys. I keep playing with the wheel, because the wheel does have a little bit of posability to it. You can see that it wiggles down below there, and does have a free spinning wheel. Some nice paint on the tread area of the tire, as well as the interior, the spoked area that attaches to the framework. The coloring I best could describe as yellow, but it's got a real dingy tone to it, really dingy, dark, kind of washes and dry brushes and stuff over top of that of additional paint. So it starts relatively clean, one would imagine, and then has just been doused and covered in mud, just dirt, debris, anything these would have been getting while they're moving along on the terrain here. Love all just the rough nature of the actual plastic here. I mean, it does look like it could theoretically be metal. Let me assure you, though, it is 100% plastic. Got some really nice details, like little rivets, and love just, again, going back to the dry brushing here, of the additional brown paint here. Does really fill in those little creviced areas of the panels. Does really give it that sense of age. On the underside, if we just move the arm out of the way, you can see all the little wires and tubings and stuff like that on the interior. Some nice bright orange on the inside, which is actually about the only area that keeps relatively pristine, is these wires on the arms. The red and the yellow wire stay relatively clean. Well, the rest of the external areas of the robot here are, again, very tarnished, very dirty, very covered in just debris and mud here. We look at the top area here, and it does have, actually, just before we look at the antenna, the very nice looking monocle or singular eye there on the front, and you've got warning down below there as well. The eye is pretty clean. In fact, by comparing it to really the rest of it, the eye is about one of the cleanest aspects of it. That, and going back again to those wires on the arms. They've airbrushed or shaded the outer area of the eye and kept the interior relatively light. So it's got a nice kind of transitioning between the darker coloring, and then again it gets to the progressively lighter color on the inside there. Okay, so looking at the top area, it does have an antenna. The antenna does retract, and I guess to some extent you can rotate it as well. But when you are displaying it, it is neat that you can bring out the antenna like that. And actually, you know, while we're at it, let's look at the rest of its posability. His arms moves back and forth. You can also move them out. It has, I keep wanting to say it has a hinge in the elbow. You can also rotate the arm. And it doesn't look as if the hands can do anything. The little clamps can't actually open and close, which actually works better for it when we start having a look at all the accessories that it comes with. These little flaps also move back and forth as well. It's actually interesting that Claptrap seems to have more posability for what it needs to do versus some of the other character pieces that McFarlane has produced, which don't have as much posability, really, when you think about it. Some of the legs have forfeited knee hinges, elbow hinges, and stuff like that. Claptrap has basically all the hinges you would expect for a robot to have, so it really does deliver in that sense. So having a look at all of his accessories, I stuttered there for a second, comes with his hat, kind of a very nice sheriff sort of hat. Does have peg points on the undersides and does have a hole. What is that hole? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. The hat, both hats for that matter, are softer plastic. Got some nice texturing there to the surface of the hat. And there's the sheriff's star there on the front. So when you attach it to Claptrap, what you have to do, see that little hole right there? That hole fits over top of the antenna. I find it even easier to bring the antenna down, so there's a lot less trying to finagle it around there. Just drape it over the antenna like so, so it actually fits through the hole, and then you can attach the pegs on either side to attach the sheriff's hat. And while we're at it, also comes with a little pistol. Doesn't look as if anything moves. I thought maybe the revolver end of it would rotate, but does not. That's not the case. Doesn't really look like it has a lot of paint to it. Just a little bit. There's a little bit of almost like a scratched, roughed up area to the actual plastic. A little bit of paint in there. Not a whole lot though. Now going back to the clamp end of it, the clamps don't open and close, which actually works favoring Claptrap because it's a lot easier to get him to hold things. You simply are just sliding it into the hand. Now if you imagine if the clamp could open and close, that would be something that would be very loose, most likely, as I'm talking here, would be very loose and probably would not be able to hold the weapons or accessories very well at all. So it actually works better that it's just simply a case that you're sliding it in place, because it seems to do a fine job of holding everything. If Wizard be seeking something, if you be seeking Wizard instead, you can take the hat off, and it comes with a Wizard's hat. Now the hat doesn't seem to have as much the problem getting in place as, well, with the sheriff's hat. And you can plug it in two different places. I guess you could plug it the opposite way, but it will butt up against the antenna right there. So your best means are to attach it from the front here, or at least have that little draping. And the draping makes sense as well because it drapes over top of the front area of the top body of Claptrap here. And you can also display it with what looks to be like a wooden sword. It actually kind of looks more like a wand, but has a handle to it. And you can also attach this as well, which I guess is a similar type of wand. Never played Borderlands, so I'm actually not sure specifically what these things do, but I guess it's like a wand or whatnot. They both look good. I mean, I probably wouldn't double hand accessories, probably just have one in it. This ratcheted elbow, and I use the term ratcheted elbow very loosely because it is very loose. This one's not so bad. This one's a little on the looser side. And then you can go ahead and attach it once again to the back of its base. And then you don't have to worry about it toppling over again. It's a nice showpiece. It has a lot of cool accessories to it. All around, the Borderlands Claptrap is a win from the folks over at McFarlane Toys. I may have played Borderlands a total of about 15 to 20 minutes at my friend's house. Not a bad looking game, but I'm just not as much into gaming as I used to be. But what I am into is collecting figures and cool collectibles. And I have to admit, even though I don't really know too much about the Borderlands games, I really do think that this one turned out really nice. I do like the design of Claptrap. I'm kind of really a big sucker when it comes to robot design characters. So Claptrap really meets the bill for me. It kind of gives me that vibe of the sort of characters I like Wally and Johnny Five and stuff like that. So I really do like the design aesthetics here of Claptrap. McFarlane Toys actually delivers a pretty good looking figure. It actually is somewhat ironic that Claptrap here ends up being a better figure than some of the human characters that McFarlane still seems to struggle with when translating it to plastic. Claptrap is a really faithful recreation of how it appears in the game, and I really think it's a nice pickup for fans of Borderlands, and even for fans that have never played Borderlands. It's just a really fun looking collectible. Today we were having a look at the McFarlane Toys. This was the Borderlands Claptrap. If you guys haven't had a chance to hit that little subscribe button down below, make sure you do so. Many more videos will be coming your way. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.